You wake up because the air is already warm. Not the gentle warmth of a summer morning, but a slow, pressing heat that has weight to it. Your skin feels coated in fine dust. The light is different here. It does not creep in, it floods. You are lying on woven reeds. The floor beneath them is packed earth, cool only where night still lingers. The ceiling above you is low, made of mud brick and wooden beams. Somewhere outside, someone is grinding grain. The sound is rhythmic, steady, circular. It repeats like breathing. You sit up. The first thing you smell is the Nile. Not clean water, not fresh rain. The Nile smells of mud and vegetation, fish scales, damp reeds, and something mineral, ancient and fertile at the same time. It smells alive. You step outside. The sky is enormous, pale blue already turning white from brightness. The river stretches wide and slow, reflecting the sun like hammered copper. Date palms sway in a faint breeze. Water birds move in quick bursts, stabbing at the shallows. Men walk past you barefoot in linen kilts, shaved heads glistening with oil. Women carry baskets of barley on their hips, their dresses clinging lightly to their bodies in the heat. A donkey brays. A boy laughs. A priest chants from a small shrine painted in blue and red. You do not understand the words. You are in Egypt. Year 1274 before Common Era. Reign of Ramesses II. You do not yet know what that means. You look at the people around you. They are not what modern imagination often paints them as. They are not pale Europeans carved in marble. They are not dark silhouettes from myth. They are brown-skinned, sun-warmed, with dark eyes and dark hair. Some are lighter, some darker. Skin tones shift subtly like the shades of the riverbank. Their features are sharp, defined. Their movements efficient. Their bodies lean from labor, not indulgence. They look like people shaped by the Nile. And in many ways, they are. These are the descendants of thousands of years of settlement along this river. Farmers, builders, scribes, sailors, soldiers. Their ancestry blends North African roots with Levantine influence. They are not the same as modern Egyptians. Centuries of conquests and migrations will change this land. But the genetic thread is not broken. It runs forward, altered, layered, but present. You are the foreign element here. You do not know the language. You do not know the gods. And everything depends on both. The Nile governs life. There is no Egypt without it. Every year the river floods, rising from rains far to the south in lands you have never seen. When it spills over its banks, it leaves behind black silt. Thick, fertile, the color of life. This is why the desert presses close but does not consume. You walk toward the fields. Men are already working in shallow water, guiding wooden plows pulled by oxen. Mud squeezes between their toes. The earth smells rich, wet clay and organic decay. You step into it and nearly lose your balance. They laugh, not cruelly, but you are clearly not from here. The sun climbs quickly. Heat settles onto your shoulders like a cloak. Sweat forms and does not evaporate easily. Linen sticks to your skin. You begin to understand something simple and profound. The Nile is not a resource. It is a god. By midday, someone presses bread into your hand. Flat, coarse, slightly gritty from stone-ground flour. It smells nutty and sour. You tear it open. Steam escapes faintly. You dip it into a bowl of lentils flavored with onions and herbs. The taste is earthy, heavy, honest. Beer follows. Thick, cloudy, more like fermented grain porridge than modern drink. It tastes sour and slightly sweet. It fills your stomach quickly. Dates are passed around. Sticky, intensely sweet. Dried fish, salted and sharp, cut into strips. This is not luxury. This is stability. You watch how food is shared. There is hierarchy, yes, but also rhythm. Everyone eats. Everyone drinks. Even laborers. Malnutrition exists, but famine is rare when the flood is good. You smell garlic, coriander, cumin. You notice something else. They are clean, not in modern sterile ways, but deliberately so. Men shave their heads to reduce lice. Bodies are washed in river water. Oils are applied to skin. Perfumed cones melt slowly atop wigs during festivals. Cleanliness is not only hygiene. It is order against chaos. You try speaking. Your words are meaningless here. The language around you flows with consonants and soft vowels. Gestures accompany speech. Names of gods appear often. Ammonius. Areta. You begin mimicking sounds. Simple ones. Greetings. Thanks. A boy corrects your pronunciation with surprising seriousness. He does not see you as mystical outsider. He sees you as clumsy. That is better. You will need to become less noticeable. You meet her at dusk. She is washing linen in the shallows. Her hair is braided tightly, dark against her shoulders. Her dress clings damply to her body as she wrings fabric and slaps it against stone. She glances at you only briefly at first. You step closer to the water and almost slip again in the mud. This time she laughs openly. Not mocking, amused. You help lift a basket of wet cloth onto her head. It is heavier than you expect. She steadies it with one hand and nods. No dramatic moment. No music. Just shared effort. Over the next days, you see her often. She grinds grain with her mother. She carries jars. She listens when older women speak. Once, she touches your wrist lightly to correct how you tie a linen sash. Her skin smells faintly of oil and river water. Affection here is not theatrical. It is proximity. It is labor shared. It is glances held half a second longer than required. One afternoon, as you help stack reed bundles near a granary, a man steps close behind you. His hand rests briefly on your shoulder, longer than necessary. He smiles, not boldly, but knowingly. Later, in the men's quarters near a work site, you notice how physical closeness between men carries no automatic scandal. Arms rest across shoulders. Hands grip forearms firmly. Egyptian society does not define desire in categories you understand. There is no word here for identity as you know it. There are acts. There are roles. There are expectations. Marriage is expected. Family is central. Procreation stabilizes inheritance and property. But intimacy between men exists in art, in poetry, in coded stories. Some forms are tolerated quietly, others mocked. It depends on status, discretion, and context. You learn quickly that public dignity matters more than private rumor. Desire does not define a person here. Position does. You respond to the man with politeness and distance. Not rejection, not invitation. Balance is survival. News travels slowly but carries weight. Ramesses II is building temples in Thebes. Ramesses II is preparing for campaign in the north. Ramesses II is beloved of Ammonius. You have not seen him, but his presence is everywhere. Carved into stone, painted onto walls. His name repeated in ritual. Pharaoh is not simply king. He is divine mediator. Without him, the flood would fail. The sun would falter. Chaos would return. Or so the priests insist. You begin to understand the scale of what you have stepped into. This is not isolated village life. This is part of a state thousands of years old. Organized, confident, and preparing for war. You fall asleep that night listening to the river. Frogs, insects, soft human voices fading. You have eaten their bread, drunk their beer, learned their gestures, felt attraction and attention in equal measure. You are beginning to belong. And you do not yet know that within months you will march north, away from the Nile's steady rhythm, toward Syria, toward chariots, toward dust and bronze, toward Kadesh. The river owns this land, but it does not own the future. You wake before the sun fully claims the sky, not because of noise, but because of rhythm. Grinding stone against grain, a wooden pestle striking mortar, water sloshing in clay jars. The village is already alive. You step outside and the first thing you notice is color. Not desert yellow, that waits beyond the fields, but green. Deep, saturated green stretching in narrow bands along the Nile. The land here is called Kemet, the Black Land. Not because of skin, not because of race, but because of soil. When the flood recedes, it leaves behind dark silt, so fertile it feels almost indecent. Beyond it lies Shred, the Red Land. The desert, death without the river. Egyptians live between those two truths every day. You watch them closely now. Their bodies are shaped by repetition. Men wear short linen kilts tied at the waist. Their heads are shaved smooth. Lice are a practical enemy in this heat. Many wear simple wigs during ceremonies or festivals. Oil shines faintly on their skin, not decorative but protective. Women wear fitted linen dresses held by straps, pleated carefully. Jewelry is not excess, it is identity. Faience beads, copper bracelets, amulets of gods. A scarab here, an eye of Horus there. Their skin tones vary subtly. Some lighter, some darker. Most somewhere between deep bronze and warm olive. Their features resemble populations across the eastern Mediterranean and North Africa. They do not resemble the marble statues of later Greece. Nor do they resemble modern Egyptians fully. Centuries of migration and conquest will change this land. But here, now, in 1274 BCE, they are unmistakably themselves. They are Egyptians. You are not. And that matters. There is no idle mourning here. Children herd goats. Women grind grain. Men repair irrigation channels using wooden tools and woven baskets to redirect water. You step into a field and the mud sucks at your feet. It is thick, cool, alive with tiny insects. An ox snorts beside you as it pulls a plow cart from wood hardened by use. The farmer guiding it speaks to you slowly. You recognize a few words now. Water, field, good flood. You nod too eagerly. He smirks. You are still learning how not to look astonished by everything. Agriculture here is not primitive chaos. It is calculated. The flood is measured using nilometers, stone structures marking water height. Taxes are determined by predicted yield. Scribes record everything. Egypt is not mystical disorder. It is bureaucratic precision disguised as divine harmony. By midday, the heat presses down with physical force. The air smells of wet mud, onion stalks, animal dung drying in the sun, fresh bread baking against clay oven walls, beer fermenting in large jars. You taste the beer again, thick, nutritious, slightly sour. It is safer than river water and part of daily rations. Even laborers receive it. Bread comes in many forms. Flat loaves, cone-shaped loaves baked in molds, coarse loaves with bits of stone grit that crack faintly between your teeth. Garlic is strong, leeks sharper, coriander sweet and earthy. You learn quickly, flavor is not luxury here. It is preservation and health. You expected shouting authority. Instead, authority here is quiet. The village headman does not scream. He observes. The scribe does not lift heavy loads, but his reed pen controls allocation of grain, labor assignments, and taxes. You notice how often people bow slightly when officials pass. Not deeply, not dramatically, just enough. Status is everywhere, but rarely theatrical. Even priests move with restrained dignity. Their linen is cleaner, their speech more measured, their bodies leaner. You begin understanding something subtle. Egypt is obsessed with balance. Ma'at, the concept of cosmic order, governs everything. Social behavior is part of cosmic stability. Excess emotion is suspicious. Public chaos is dangerous. This is not a society built on loud heroism. It is built on continuity. You see her again near the grinding stone. Sweat glistens along her temple as she pushes the upper stone forward and back over barley. The motion is exhausting. You kneel to help. Your hands blister quickly. She laughs again, softer now. This time she teaches you. Hands flatter. Pressure even. Body weight forward. You feel her presence close beside you. Her shoulder brushing yours occasionally. Her breath steady despite effort. In the evening she brings you figs. Not many. Just 2. It is not a confession. It is inclusion. Her family watches you carefully. Not hostile. Curious. You are foreign. But you are useful. And usefulness here is attractive. In the workers' quarters near a construction site upriver, men sleep close together on reed mats. One evening, after a long day carrying limestone blocks for a small shrine, a fellow laborer shares beer with you. His hand lingers on your arm. His eyes do not look away quickly. You understand. Egyptian society does not define desire the way your world does. There are no public categories, no political debates, no identity markers. There are roles. Marriage is expected. Family is central. Inheritance depends on it. Women hold property rights. Lineage matters. But physical closeness between men exists openly in certain spaces. Some relationships are romantic. Some are hierarchical. Some ambiguous. Acceptance depends on status and discretion. Scandal is not about desire. It is about public humiliation. You navigate carefully. You choose proximity with the girl by the river. But you also understand that Egypt's social fabric is more complex than modern labels allow. At night, you lie awake listening to distant chanting. You think about the people around you. They are not mystical abstractions carved in museum stone. They are farmers who worry about flood height, mothers who fear infant illness, young men who compete quietly for prestige, girls who assess potential husbands not for romance, but for stability. They believe in dozens of gods, but not blindly. Ritual is habit. Piety is practical. The sun rises because order is maintained. You realize something that unsettles you. They do not feel ancient. They feel normal. You are the anomaly. One afternoon, a messenger arrives from a larger administrative center. He wears cleaner linen, a better belt, a signet. He brings news. Ramesses II prepares to march north. The Hittites have moved in Syria. There will be war near a city called Kadesh. The name means nothing to you yet, but it will. Men in the village begin discussing chariot units, supply trains, grain quotas for the army. You feel it, the subtle shift. The Nile remains calm. The fields remain green. But Egypt is turning its attention outward, and you are no longer just surviving. You are being counted. The village does not prepare for war loudly. It prepares for it methodically. One morning, a cart arrives not with grain, but with names. A scribe stands beneath a palm canopy, reed pen poised, calling men forward one by one. Not volunteers, not heroes, just entries in a ledger. Your name is not Egyptian. He hesitates. He writes it anyway. You are now counted. You do not see Ramesses II at first. You see his image, everywhere, carved into limestone pylons, painted onto temple walls, standing 30 feet high in red granite, muscles exaggerated, jaw firm, enemies crushed beneath his feet. He is shown alone, always alone, defeating entire armies. But Egypt is not naive. The people know soldiers fight, generals plan, Scribes calculate, and yet the image matters. Because Pharaoh is not merely ruler. He is the physical vessel of divine order. Without him, Ma'at, balance, collapses. Without Ma'at, the Nile might not flood. Without flood, there is no Egypt. You travel south to Thebes as part of a grain convoy, and there you finally see the scale of it. Temples rise like mountains carved by geometry, columns painted in blues, reds, and golds. Reliefs showing Ramesses smiting Libyans, Nubians, Hittites, all compressed beneath his arm. Priests chant hymns comparing him to Ra at sunrise. You notice something unsettling. The illusion is so complete that it becomes reality. He does not need to be everywhere. Stone travels for him. War does not begin with shouting. It begins with counting. You are assigned temporarily to a supply registry. A scribe, thin, precise, unsmiling, tracks barley loads, dried meat quotas, chariot wool production, horse feed ratios. He speaks calmly while calculating rations for thousands. You realize Egypt's power is not mystical. It is administrative. Each province must provide grain, linen, bronze weaponry, laborers, draft animals. Everything is recorded. Nothing is improvised. When a farmer complains that the flood was weak, the scribe adjusts the tax, but does not remove it. War requires surplus. Surplus requires pressure, and pressure flows downward. You understand now why the village worked so rhythmically. They were not only feeding themselves, they were feeding an army. You see your first full military formation outside Ramesses. It does not look chaotic. It looks engineered. Egyptian chariots are light, 2 men per vehicle, driver and archer, built from bent wood, leather lashings, spoked wheels. They are fast, not armored tanks, but mobile platforms. Ramesses II has divided his army into named divisions. Ammonius, Ra, Ta, Set. Each functions almost independently. Each has its own banners, officers, supply units. The soldiers are not peasants dragged unwillingly. Many are professionals. Others are conscripts, yes, but disciplined. Training fields echo with arrows striking targets. Horses snort under leather harness. You are placed near logistical support, repairing leather fittings, transporting water skins. The girl from the village watches you leave. Her hand lingers on yours longer than usual. She does not ask you not to go. War is expected. In Egypt, the pharaoh campaigns. That is what divine kings do. You finally see him. Ramesses II rides past in a ceremonial chariot before departure north. He is young still, powerful, broad-shouldered, confident. His face symmetrical, eyes steady. He does not look mythical. He looks human, and yet the crowd reacts differently. They kneel. Some weep. Priests throw incense into braziers so thick smoke wraps his figure in haze. It is not forced hysteria. It is cultivated belief. He raises a hand. The gesture is measured, controlled. You feel something strange. Not faith, not doubt, but recognition. He understands performance, and performance shapes history. The army begins moving north. Dust replaces humidity. Green narrows into brown. The Nile recedes behind you. Ahead lies Syria. Ahead lies the Hittites. Ahead lies Kadesh. And for the first time, you sense something dangerous beneath Egypt's confidence. Overextension. The Nile is no longer behind you. It narrows, then thins, then disappears. The land becomes harder. Dust replaces humidity. The air smells of dry grass, leather, and animal sweat instead of wet silt and river rot. The sky feels wider here, almost indifferent. You are no longer marching through a world built around one river. You are entering contested ground. And for the first time, you begin to hear a word spoken with tension. Hatti. You expected barbarians. You find something else. The Hittites are not wandering tribes from myth. They are an empire, centered in Anatolia, modern central Turkey, in a capital called Hattusa, carved into highland stone. Fortified, organized, literate. They are Indo-European in origin, their language unrelated to Egyptian. Their gods different, their diplomacy complex. They do not worship the Nile. They worship storms. The storm god Tezhub dominates their pantheon. Lightning is authority. Thunder is divine judgment. Their culture grows in mountains, not floodplains. Their architecture is heavy stone, not mud brick. Their cities hug ridges and highlands rather than rivers. You pass through northern Canaan and into Syria. The land is mixed. Semitic-speaking city-states, Egyptian garrisons, Hittite envoys, trade routes that carry cedar wood, silver, horses, and rumor. The Near East is not a frontier. It is a chessboard, and you are walking across it. Kadesh is not a vast metropolis. It sits on a mound near the Orontes River, strategically placed, not because it is rich, but because it is positioned. Control Kadesh, and you control movement between Anatolia and Syria. Control Kadesh, and you control trade. Control Kadesh, and you challenge Egypt's influence in the Levant. Ramesses II wants it back. The Hittite king, Muwatalli II, refuses to yield it. Neither side wants annihilation. They want dominance. And dominance is expensive. You see Kadesh from a distance, walls hugging a hill, river bending around its flank. Dust swirls faintly in the distance. You think it looks small. You will learn how deceptive that impression is. The Egyptian army advances in 4 divisions. Ammonius leads. Ra follows. Then Ta. Then Set. Ramesses II travels with the Ammonius division, the vanguard. The march is long and disciplined, but distance begins to stretch the columns thin. The Hittites fight differently. Their chariots are heavier. 3 men per vehicle, driver, shield bearer, spearman. Less agile than Egyptian chariots, but devastating in mass. They rely not only on speed, but on shock. And they wait. You begin to sense something wrong before anyone says it. Messengers report that the Hittite king is far north, retreating. 2 captured scouts confirm it. Ramesses believes them, but the land feels too quiet. Villages abandoned. Smoke faint on distant ridges. No resistance. No harassment. An army that large does not disappear politely. Ramesses II moves faster. Confident. Perhaps too confident. The Ammonius division crosses the Orontes and camps near Kadesh. The Ra division trails behind, separated by miles of open terrain. The other divisions are even farther. You are with a support unit near the river. You are thirsty. The heat is sharp. Syrian heat, drier, more cutting than the Nile Valley. Your lips crack. Then it happens. Hittite chariots erupt from behind the city. Hundreds of them, not scattered skirmishers. A wave. They slam into the Ra division mid-march. The formation shatters. Men scatter. Chariots overturn. Dust swallows visibility. You hear screaming before you understand the scale. The Egyptian army has been split. Ramesses II is suddenly isolated with only part of his force. The Hittites had never retreated. They were waiting behind Kadesh. The scouts were either tortured into lying or deliberately sent as bait. You feel the shift physically. This is no longer demonstration of power. This is survival. Chariots thunder past you. Horses foam at the mouth. Arrows slice the air. A wounded soldier collapses beside you, clutching his side. You see Egyptian units break. something you did not believe possible. The camp is exposed. Supply wagons overturned. Leather water skins trampled into mud. Hittite chariots cut through tents like knives. Ramesses II is nearly captured. Nearly. Egyptian inscriptions later claim he stood alone against thousands. Reality is harsher and more human. He fought, yes, but more importantly, he did not flee. He rallied what remained of his guard. He reorganized in chaos. And reinforcements arrived, not from divine intervention, from timing. The Nueran, allied troops from Amuru, appear unexpectedly and hit the Hittite flank. The balance shifts. Hittite chariots, heavy and effective in initial charge, struggle in prolonged engagement. Momentum fades. The storm slows. By evening, neither side controls the field completely. The Egyptians have avoided annihilation. The Hittites have failed to destroy the pharaoh. Both sides withdraw. Both sides survive. The city of Kadesh remains in Hittite hands. Egypt does not conquer it, but Egypt does not collapse either. And this is the strange truth. The Battle of Kadesh is one of the largest chariot battles in history, perhaps 5,000 chariots involved. And it produces no decisive victory. It becomes something else, a narrative war. You stand amid broken wheels and dead horses. The smell of blood mixes with dust and river water. You are alive, but you have seen something important. Egypt is powerful, but not invincible. Ramesses II will carve this battle into stone as glorious triumph. The Hittites will return home claiming strategic success, and in the end, both empires will choose something rarer than conquest: peace. The battle is over, but the story has just begun. You stand among broken wheels and trampled tents. The air is still heavy with dust. The Orontes River moves slowly beside you, as if nothing has happened. Horses lie where they fell. Bronze glints faintly in late afternoon light. Men move differently now. Quieter, slower. You expected triumph. Instead, you feel something far more complicated. Relief, confusion, exhaustion, and calculation. Because what happened at Kadesh is not what will be remembered. No one celebrates loudly. Egypt did not conquer the city. Kadesh still stands. Hittite forces have withdrawn, but not destroyed. The wounded are treated with honey, resin, linen bandages. You hold a man steady while a healer presses cloth into a deep cut in his thigh. He bites down on leather to avoid screaming. Water is rationed carefully. Some men whisper that the pharaoh was reckless. Others whisper that he was invincible. Both statements feel fragile. You hear officers discussing something that sounds almost like damage control. Messengers are already being sent south. Reports must be written. Narratives must be shaped. You begin to understand something uncomfortable. History does not wait for clarity. It waits for inscription. In the days that follow, Ramesses II moves through the ranks. Not theatrically, not in golden splendor. He inspects, speaks briefly, nods. He does not acknowledge how close the army came to collapse. He does not mention the ambush as a failure. Instead, he speaks of resilience, of divine protection, of Ammonius guiding his arm. And something shifts again, not because everyone believes him blindly, but because belief stabilizes morale. You realize leadership here is not denial of reality. It is management of perception. If Ramesses II had admitted weakness openly, panic might have spread. Instead, he transforms near disaster into heroic endurance. And in doing so, he keeps Egypt intact. Months later, you stand inside a temple workshop in Thebes. Carvers chip into limestone walls. You watch as scenes of Kadesh take shape. Ramesses II stands alone in his chariot. Arrows fly around him. Enemies scatter in fear. The scale is exaggerated. The narrative simplified. A scribe nearby recites lines from what will later be called the Poem of Pentor. It tells of betrayal by cowardly officers, of Ramesses abandoned, of the pharaoh calling upon Ammonius, of divine strength flooding his limbs. You were there. You know the truth was more complex. Reinforcements mattered. Strategy mattered. Survival depended on human decisions. But the relief does not show complexity. It shows certainty. Because stone does not tolerate ambiguity. You feel something strange as you watch the carving. You understand that propaganda is not deception alone. It is preservation. Empires survive by convincing themselves of coherence. Meanwhile, the Hittite Empire remains powerful. Muwatalli II returns to Anatolia not as defeated enemy, but as ruler who prevented Egyptian expansion. He too shapes the story differently. In his lands, Kadesh is proof of strength. Neither side won. Neither side lost. The Levant remains contested, and war continues in smaller engagements. Years pass. The strain grows. Egypt cannot endlessly campaign in Syria without draining the Nile economy. The Hittites face threats from Assyria rising in the east. Two large powers, neither destroyed, both extended. You begin to sense where this is going. Then something unprecedented happens. Instead of marching again, envoys travel. Silver tablets are inscribed in Akkadian, the diplomatic language of the time. The agreement is formal. No aggression, mutual defense, extradition of fugitives, recognition of borders. It is the earliest surviving international peace treaty in recorded history. You see a copy of it years later in a temple archive. It feels almost modern, calculated, legal, balanced. War nearly shattered both empires. Diplomacy preserved them. Later, Ramesses II will marry a Hittite princess, not for romance, for stability. The girl by the river asks you once whether the war was worth it. You struggle to answer. Egypt remains powerful. The Nile still floods. The temples still rise. But something changed inside you at Kadesh. You learned that glory is carved, but survival is negotiated. Kadesh was not simply a battle. It was one of the largest chariot clashes in human history. A demonstration of how intelligence failure can nearly destroy an army. A lesson in rapid recovery. A turning point toward diplomacy instead of endless escalation. It showed that even divine kings miscalculate. It showed that empires can choose restraint. You stand once more by the Nile at dusk. The water moves as it always has. The flood will come again. Children will grind grain. Priests will chant. Ramesses II will be remembered as victorious. And perhaps, in stone, he is. But you know something more subtle. The real victory at Kadesh was not destruction. It was survival. The Nile is still there. That is the first thing you notice when you return. It has not changed. The water still moves with quiet authority. The flood still leaves black soil behind. Palm trees still sway. The air still smells of wet earth and fermented grain. And yet everything feels different, because you are not the same man who left. When you left for Syria, you were uncertain. Now you walk with controlled movements. You scan horizons without meaning to. Loud noises draw your eyes instantly. Children stare at the scar along your arm. You do not remember exactly when you got it. You remember dust. You remember horses screaming. You remember the moment when Egyptian lines broke and the world narrowed to survival. The village welcomes you quietly. No dramatic embraces. No weeping. Egyptians are not theatrical in public emotion, but you see it in smaller gestures. An extra portion of bread, a hand resting briefly against your shoulder. The girl by the river does not run toward you. She stands still, watching, measuring, as if she needs proof that you are fully present. War distorts time. Village life restores it. You begin helping again with irrigation ditches. You repair roof beams before flood season. You stand beside her as grain is measured for tax collection. The closeness between you changes. It is less shy now, more deliberate. One evening by the Nile, as the sky burns orange and insects begin their hum, she presses her forehead lightly against yours. No witnesses, no declarations. But in Egypt, proximity is meaning. Marriage is not framed as romantic destiny here. It is partnership. Property passes through women legally. Dowries are documented. Divorce is possible and recorded. Contracts are practical. Love exists, but it is woven into stability. The empire may carve battles into stone, but families build continuity, and continuity outlives war. Sometimes at night you wake before dawn. For a moment you expect dust. Instead, you hear frogs. You expect bronze clashing. Instead, you hear grinding stone. Your wife notices. She does not ask you to explain. She adjusts her position slightly closer. War lingers in your body. But Egypt has rituals for reintegration. Festivals, temple visits, offerings to Ammonius. You stand before a statue of Ramesses II carved in impossible proportions. He appears eternal. You remember him covered in dust and sweat. Both images are true. The man from the labor camp, the one whose hand lingered once too long, sees you again in the market. His gaze is softer now, less probing, more understanding. He nods. No resentment, no accusation. You understand something important about Egyptian society now. Identity is not declared here. Life moves in layers. Desire, duty, marriage, hierarchy, all coexist without modern categories. Stability matters more than labels, and stability has returned. Years pass. Ramesses II continues building. Temple after temple. Colossal statues at Abu Simbel. Reliefs of Kadesh repeated again and again. He becomes myth within his own lifetime. But beneath the stone narrative, something else is happening. Egypt does not march north again with the same aggression. Skirmishes occur. Tensions remain. But total war slows. The cost was too high. The memory too sharp. The empire learned. And so did you. You walk again along the Nile at sunset. Your child runs ahead, chasing ibis along the riverbank. Your wife calls after him calmly. The air smells of bread and river mud. You think of Kadesh, of how close everything came to collapse. And you understand something that was invisible to you before. Returning is not the opposite of war. It is its consequence. Love is not naive here. It is endurance. And Egypt's true strength is not only its chariots. It is its ability to absorb violence and continue. The Nile continues to flood. The temples continue to rise. But something unprecedented has happened in the space between war and pride. You feel it before you fully understand it. The air is calmer, not because enemies vanished, but because calculation replaced momentum. Years after Kadesh, the memory of the battle remains alive, but not sharp. Egypt did not conquer Syria. The Hittites did not push south into the Nile Valley. The front stabilized, but stabilization is expensive. Assyria grows stronger in the east, pressing against Hittite borders. Trade routes demand protection. Drought cycles threaten agricultural margins in Anatolia. Even Ramesses II, confident, monumental, relentless builder, cannot expand forever. Empires do not fall only from defeat. They strain from extension. And both Egypt and Hittite have reached the edge of sustainable war. Envoys meet again, not on a battlefield, not under arrow fire, in controlled space. Terms are negotiated carefully. The final agreement is inscribed in Akkadian, the diplomatic lingua franca of the Near East. Its clauses are astonishingly modern. Mutual non-aggression, mutual military support against third parties, extradition of political fugitives, recognition of borders, divine witnesses invoked to enforce compliance. The text is duplicated. One version travels to Egypt. One remains in Hittite. It is not symbolic. It is binding. You stand in a temple archive years later and watch as scribes carefully copy the treaty onto fresh papyrus. They treat it with reverence, not because it is poetic, but because it is durable. For the first time in recorded history, two great powers formalize peace in writing that survives millennia. In stone, Ramesses II remains the lone hero of Kadesh. On temple walls at Abu Simbel and Luxor, he still charges alone into enemy ranks. The public image does not shift, but privately, the policy does. There are no more massive northern campaigns. Instead, construction accelerates, diplomacy strengthens, trade stabilizes. Ramesses becomes less the conqueror of Kadesh and more the architect of endurance. He will rule for over 60 years, longer than almost any pharaoh. And that longevity is not achieved through constant war. It is achieved through balance. Ma'at, cosmic order, restored not by annihilation, but by agreement. When the Hittite princess arrives in Egypt as part of the diplomatic marriage, the symbolism is enormous. She does not come as captive. She comes as alliance. Her arrival is staged carefully. Processions, musicians, offerings to the gods. You stand among spectators watching her chariot approach. Different clothing, different accent, same political gravity. The marriage seals the treaty in bloodline form. For decades afterward, Egypt and Hittite will not wage full-scale war against each other. In a world where cycles of retaliation are common, that absence is extraordinary. Kadesh was once nearly catastrophe. It became myth. Then it became treaty. Then it became precedent. It demonstrated the limits of chariot supremacy, the vulnerability of intelligence networks, the necessity of diplomacy between equals, the evolution of statecraft beyond battlefield dominance. Today, a copy of that peace treaty hangs in modern halls of international diplomacy as one of humanity's earliest surviving examples of formalized geopolitical agreement. What nearly destroyed two empires ended up defining how powerful states could coexist. You walk again beside the Nile at sunset. Children run through reeds. Temple walls glow red in fading light. The river moves as it always has. The flood will come again. The gods will be invoked. Ramesses II will be remembered as triumphant. But you understand something deeper now. Victory is temporary. Stone erodes. Empires fade. What lasts longer than conquest is structure, agreement, restraint. You arrived here knowing nothing about Egypt. You leave knowing this. The most significant outcome of Kadesh was not who charged harder. It was who chose to stop. And in that decision, the ancient world took one of its first steps toward diplomacy over destruction.